Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. Can't do it. Things are going great. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Lots of people in the room already. Let's see. I'm going to figure this out, how to get your chat displayed again, guys. I can't take it anymore. JJ Fox, good morning, Great Awakeners. What a pleasure to spend my Friday morning with you all. Raise your mug because the sun is up and Bitcoin is running. It sure is, JJ Fox. Christy Nome canned for spending 200 million US trash tokens to ride her horsey and say American stuff. Serves her right. Huddle T. Washington says, good morning, team. Chef Zero, look, listen, learn, more than enough for all Bitcoin, indeed. I would have done it for half that price and save taxpayer money, JJ Fox says about his taking Christy Nome's role. Good morning, beautiful Bampians. Lee J in the house. Count us in TGIF indeed. Good to see you all. Good to see you, Lance 2002. C. Berger 17 in the house. Good morning, JJ Fox is first in class each morning, inspiring us with words of wisdom. We love it. Indeed. There's a like button in this. Smash it, says JJ Fox. Guten Tag, C. Berger 17, smiling. Good morning and happy Friday, Nolan and gang. I've been watching shows later in the day, says Going LA Late. But made it live today. We're glad you're here. 3, 2, 1, showtime. Count time, says Chef Zero. Good morning, Hassan. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for hanging with us every morning. Love you. Thanks, JJ Fox. Love you too, man. I appreciate it. Good morning, Nolan and Great Awakening crew. Happy Friday morning, Friday Awakeners. Yes, Rumble chat coming back. MRGA, make Rumble great again. Indeed, we got to get the Rumble chat back. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole experience. It shows that we're live and interactive. We love the live and interactive, right? Important. All right, let me get my notes ready here. And before I get started with our NPC news, we have some great ones this morning, really high quality NPC news. Let's acknowledge that's a major sunrise on our hands. The sun is up. And I looked, Bitcoin's running. It's currently trading at 69,000 US trash tokens per Bitcoin. It's a steal. It's a steal. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. There we go. Howdy ho, folks. Bitcoin Deb in the house. The sights and sounds of your tropical life are better than our slushy mush up here. There you go. There you go. It's a one-of-a-kind show, CB Van says. We love it. We love it. Yes, the weather in the north, it's getting to the ugly season, right? Stick season is about to come back in Vermont. And we're going to be in the ugliest stages. But I'm telling you, I think the clock changes this weekend. When is the clock changing? I start to get jealous because your time is going to start to get, your days are going to get so much longer soon. Clock change. I don't get it either here. We don't get the clock change. When is it? When's the date? USA Today telling me when it is. March 8th. Yeah, exactly. So next week, I'll be on your time, and I'll have to start the show, for me anyway, an hour earlier. But I start to get jealous. You wouldn't believe how crazy it is. You know, like I've got I talk to people on the phone back home, and they're always like you guys, you know, wow, tropical. But the minute it gets to be spring next week, and then it's lighter later in the day because the sun just sets here at 6 p.m. and soon it's going to be setting for you guys up north at 7:30. It'll take like 2 days, and people are like, oh my God, it's so dark there. It's so dark. It happens every year. It's the damnedest thing. But it makes me furious to know that there's longer days and more sunshine somewhere. So I start to feel the heat becomes a burden to me. And I start to really long for a fresh spring breeze, but still winter, so I don't have too much to worry about. I don't get that angry about it at this time, and I do indeed know the feeling of disappointing winter returns towards the end of the season. I can remember almost Vermont is getting real nice, buddy. It's getting up early. Yeah, exactly. And exactly, Vermont is probably getting real nice, and yeah, California is getting beautiful again. Yeah, it's only going to take. It takes me. I mean, that's kind of why I go at the end of March. I just can't handle knowing that there's nice spring weather back home, and I don't get to enjoy it. Then after that, every beach day is just a loss. Like I don't care. I don't care. I love spring, and I love the change of seasons so much that I love to be able to be in it, of course. So there you go. Let me have one more sip of coffee, and then we're going to get into some news. All right. Some great NPC news today, guys. I think you're really going to like it. First up, finally have a solution to living longer. You hear Brian Johnson all the time out there, right? You know, the guy who's trying to live forever, and he's doing all these experiments. Well, here's the quick way. I wonder if Brian should try this. Men and other animals live longer if they are castrated, says researcher. Huh? Anyone want the fountain of youth now? Kat Bonahan tells Hay Festival audience it is not known why men go through life smuggling 2 little death nuggets. They're death nuggets. Did you know? Someone tell Brian Johnson, we got a trick. Cut off your dick and you'll live forever. We get this from Modern. Is that the right one? Hold on. No, I want to move that to later. No, hold on. I can put that over here. That's better. We get this, guys. Big changes in China. China's decarbonization plan takes cautious steps as world backtracks on climate. China's decarbonizing, guys. They're decarbonizing. Can't wait to see it. Gonna be great. We got more economists and experts talking about the weather. We get this from earth.org. Have economists been underestimating the cost of climate change? Has the 0.1 change in temperature been accurately costed out by economists? I don't know, guys. I don't know. They should start by trying to get the temperature right and then move from there, but we'll see. Because here we find out, this is news. We get this. The last 3 years were the hottest ever recorded, guys. The last 3 years, the hottest ever recorded. Here's why we may look back at some of them as the coolest we remember. It's a very good headline. Very good. We love it. And I got more solutions here, everyone. More solutions, more worries, more stuff. It's not just that it's the hottest ever. We got this. We got a big problem. Modern buildings, guys, risk not being ready for climate change, warns academic. The buildings, right? If it goes up a degree, what's going to happen to the concrete? What about the steel? What if it's 85 and not 80? What happens then? What if we get to 105 degrees one day? What happens to the concrete and steel then? Nobody knows. We're in uncharted territory, guys. The buildings are not ready. They're at risk, guys. The buildings are at risk, and we don't even know how much it's going to cost. We don't even know. It's a big problem. We got some stuff here on international law as well. It's not just the weather that's causing us all this trouble. We got some stuff on international law. I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to share the international law stuff that we got. We got this. We got the war in Iran fractures international law, guys. The international law is fractured as bombs fall and Iranian leaders die. The rules, they had rules, and they were meant to limit. They were meant to limit war, appear weaker than ever. The guys, there were rules, and now the rules are weak because international law is fractured. We also get this from modern diplomacy: the war on Iran, a legal gray area or clear violation of the UN Charter, guys. The UN Charter might actually be violated here. It might actually be violated. We got some stuff on autocrats. Autocrats fear women. Australia's foreign policy should act on that, guys. Autocrats everywhere, just like Hillary Clinton said, they're afraid of women. They're afraid. They can't handle the women. We get this from Vox: America after Trump, how democracies fall and how they can come back. What does Vox say about American democracy? It's not in a good place. Institutional breakdown and mistrust define our political moment. Polarization has broken our politics, and Donald Trump has elevated fealty to him as opposed to the Constitution as the core principle of governance. And the American story is part of a global story. If the post-World War II decades tell the tale of liberal democracy triumphant, it was triumphant. The 21st century paints a darker picture. Values and ideals once considered foundational and immutable have come under threat from the anti-democratic forces across the globe. The rise of autocracy and retreat of liberal democracy may well be the dominant narrative when historians look back on the first quarter of the century. So where does this story go from here? That's a question we wanted to take on in this ambitious series of narrative features, video explainers, and podcast episodes that we'll publish over the next 2 weeks. This is what we got. Senior correspondent Zach Beauchamp traveled to Brazil. Brazil, of all places. Brazil, guys. We got trouble. Brazil. America after Trump. We got more in America, guys. This is just one of those classic headlines I just read. Chevron warns of economic collapse in California under Gavin Newsom in doomsday letter. But at least he's not an autocrat, okay? At least he's not an autocrat. At least America's democracy and international law are okay with him, because this is just Chevron after all. Who cares? Who cares what the energy companies say, right? So that's what we got today for NPC News, everyone. I hope you liked it. I hope you feel that amazing sense of clarity and revelation when hearing from the sludge people, when hearing from the NPCs, right? No, it's not true. You ain't touching these nuts. Nah, there you go. There you go. Chatelet effers. Happy Friday, Barely 45. Early Bitcoiner gets the BTC. That's escalated quickly, barely. Sun is up in Florida. I like saying Jack 2K. Oh my, not true. Indeed. Free castrations now for everyone. Operation Reclaim the Tips. Research experts puzzled. There you go. There you go. Take his pick off. It's gone. Just a hunk. He's gone. He's gone. Okay. As we've been doing, I'm going to start today with a bit of a breakdown on what's going on in Iran. Or then we're going to do some following the money. I think we'll be able to determine how things are going to play out over the next few weeks. I think there's enough information now that we can get a sense of what's about to happen and what is happening. And we can follow the money to make a few predictions. We'll see if we're right. But first, No Limit says, big updates from the Iran war. This will impact everyone in the world, no matter where you are. So read everything. Massive explosions hit Tehran overnight. Strikes near Tehran University, residential areas, and a military academy. Jamhuri Avenue, a major street in central Tehran, was hit. Israel says it launched a broad-scale wave of strikes. Israel's military chief says the war is entering its next phase. 2,500 strikes, 6,000 weapons dropped. Hegseth doubled the timeline. War could now last 8 weeks. His words: if you think you've seen something, just wait. The House voted down the War Powers Resolution at 219 to 212. 4 Democrats crossed the vote with Republicans. Congress has now failed twice. No constitutional check on this war. Iran launched a hybrid drone and missile attack on Tel Aviv Thursday night. Some teams saw what appeared to be a cluster warhead in the skies over central Israel. I'll show you the images of that. Iran's foreign minister told NBC that Iran has not asked for a ceasefire There's no reason to negotiate, said Iran is confident it can counter a ground invasion. An Iranian Ayatollah went on state TV calling for the shedding of blood from Israelis and Trump, one of the first public statements from a senior cleric since the war started. IRGC commanders said the coming days will bring more intense and widespread attacks. Trump told Reuters there are no time limits, told Iranian regime leaders to surrender in exchange for immunity. Iran struck a hotel and 2 residential buildings in Bahrain's capital overnight. Satellite images show Iran is targeting U.S.-made THAAD radar systems across the Arabian Peninsula, trying to degrade Gulf air defense networks. CBS News satellite analysis shows the girls' school strike in Manab also destroyed a building inside a known military base compound right next to the school, Pentagon still investigating. An airstrike destroyed 12,000-seat arena in Tehran's sports complex. Hegseth told his Israeli counterpart, keep going to the end. The war is costing U.S. taxpayers an estimated $1 billion U.S. trash tokens a day. Hegseth, we have only just begun. Day 7 timeline doubled. Congress voted twice. Both times said keep going. No ceasefire, no negotiations. Cluster warheads over Tel Aviv. And they say the next phase hasn't even started. And indeed, now that makes it sound a little more urgent, I think, than it's actually appearing. So the cluster bombs look like this. Or here's just the bomb count. I think this is a better proxy to see what's going on. Day 8 here, Iran missile launches during the first 8 days of the conflict. We're still seeing that sort of halving, not quite a halving, but from 7 to 8, it was a halving. We went from 28 to 15, and drone swarms went from 30 down to 12. So, you know, if trends persist, should be 7 or 8 missiles today and 5 or 6 drone swarms. Not sure if that's true, but that's kind of the trend we've seen here. Could change up a little. Here's the cluster bomb that they said was fired yesterday. Iran fires a Kora Mashar ballistic missile with cluster munition warheads at Israel. Iran's Supreme Leader's X account posted an image of the missile, writing, these moments are on the horizon, and they said that this has a 2,000-kilometer range and can carry a warhead up to 1.5 tons, capable of dispersing dozens of submunitions. More than 100 countries have banned cluster munitions, but Iran, Israel, the U.S., China, Russia, and Ukraine are not signatories to the treaty prohibiting their use. And indeed, they look pretty scientific. Now, no idea what the fallout of it was. Not a ton of accurate stuff coming from Israel, even. So what's going on? Looks like they're pretty well degraded, and I would say that launching a bomb like this cluster thing, if you've only got like 8 of them, it really does show that the Iranian system is moving more towards theater and less towards actual threats. This looks like theater above and beyond any form of control. So the point now is not to actually damage Israel, it's to create more theater and more of these optics online in order to continue the psychological component of this hot war. This hot war, of course, is both psychological and economic. And so seeing it go into the psychological phase, of course, economics has a huge role in psychology, and it is a psychological phenomenon as well. So shock and awe is one form of psychological manipulation, but another is just winning and making money and seeing things go in a certain predictable economic direction. And so most people are quite self-interested and definitely want to have their stuff get their way. And so seeing if the various blockades and economic fallout from the area, from the whole Gulf Coast, are having any more of these effects is a pretty good way of predicting where the whole conflict is going to head next. So some good news, bad news, depends on how you take it. Here, UAE commercial flights are now being escorted by fighter jets to ensure the safe evacuation of repatriation of residents, not for world leaders or diplomats, but ordinary tourists and residents, a rare sight that shows how seriously the UAE is taking civilian safety. And indeed, it looks like the ships that come in are getting these escorts I saw a few of these fighter jets when I was in Dubai 3 weeks ago. They did a bit of an air show when I was there just before I started my show here. But flights are up and running again, according to several people. There's lots of folks saying that they're able to get out of the country and that a lot of the commercial air flights in both Dubai and Abu Dhabi are back up and running. Less so far in Qatar. I don't think the Doha airport is officially up and running again, but people getting in and out. Now, there's some commercial concerns with the lack of inputs into this, desert oasis that doesn't produce a lot of stuff and is really a consumption-based city. And they do also, of course, Dubai has been a free port for most of its history. That's kind of its economic um, niche, right? They weren't a sanctions enforcing area, and for that reason, they had a lot of people parking gold there. Gold, of course, has no taxation in the area, and it's a huge market. I've been to many of the souks. I usually buy some precious metal jewelry for my little children and my wife when I'm in the area, just because it's so readily available. And there's also a huge, huge, huge gold vault in one of those amazing skyscrapers in Dubai. I've been to it. Incredible amount of gold is stored in Dubai. I don't know how much, but it's somewhat of a sign of pride in Dubai. And it turns out that that is another factor you can look at here. Gold stuck in Dubai is being sold at a discount as the war widens. Gold is being offered at a steep discount in Dubai as the war in the Middle East grounds flights and hampers suppliers' ability to move bullion out of the key trading hub. Many buyers have stepped back from new orders, unwilling to pay exceptionally high shipping and insurance costs with no guarantee of prompt delivery. As a result, rather than paying indefinitely for storage and funding, traders are offering discounts of as much as 30 US trash tokens an ounce to the global benchmark in London, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Now, that's kind of, you know, normal for large amounts. You never get the market rate. That's not like it's not like in Bitcoin, gold, and silver. If you listen to the Cardones, they've been talking about that lot lately. Many shipments remain stranded on Friday, the people said, although some bullion have been loaded onto flights leaving Dubai from the middle of this week. So it's a massive bullion hub and has been growing over the years. Lots of people keep their gold there. But as a Bitcoiner, I say this is probably looking bearish, but actually bullish for all the reasons Bitcoiners already understand. The mobility of Bitcoin versus gold has always been one of the obvious talking points. So, more dangerous than the gold situation is, of course, food. I've had this thought a few times in the area. Like, there's not water or a lot of supplies in this area. And I've worried that the place would turn, I've had the vision of it turning into a zombie apocalypse before. And that was without any of this stuff. And so, indeed, Gulf countries may run out of fresh food stocks in days, apparently. The war with Iran is choking supply chains. 18% of global air cargo is already grounded, and sea routes are crumbling fast. Many Gulf countries import almost everything, and fresh fruits, vegetables, and other perishables could be the first to vanish. Time is running out. We'll be able to analyze all of this. So, bigger than the air restrictions are the Strait of Hormuz, of course. And now it looks like no ships. So, just like the munitions and the missiles are going down, so are the ships traversing the Strait of Hormuz. Here we see that basically no ships are going through anymore. Just a couple of bulk carriers yesterday. I think 2 or 3 made it through. And so there are many concerns, of course, that there's some form of recession coming. Prof. Sainoj takes a look here. Let me know if the audio is coming through in this. It ought to. Got it. No audio. I see. I see. I see. I see. I don't know why it does that sometimes, guys. I really can't understand it. Let me redo it here. So it should work this time. Let me bring it back.
Will the Iran war send us into recession? Is Donald Trump's totally awesome 1980s boom headed for a 1970s quagmire? As soon as the bombs started falling over Tehran, American markets crashed, bonds fell, silver plunged, even gold is down. Oil, of course, jumped 10% in 2 days from $67 to $74 per barrel. Now, markets always react fast, and they can overreact. The question for the real economy is, how long does the war last? This is because the main impact is oil prices, and these are driven by supply disruptions in the Middle East. About 1/5 of world oil exports pass through Iran's Strait of Hormuz. Another third are in range of Iranian missiles in the Gulf of Oman and the Red Sea. Now, the U.S. actually imports almost none of this. Just 2% of our oil comes from the Middle East, but oil prices are global. Within 3 days, ship traffic in the Strait of Hormuz ground to a, quote, total halt. Trump responded with government guarantees on ship insurance, which helped, but traffic will not fully recover until the bombs stop. Now, Trump is currently promising the war will last just 4 weeks, but the administration is also messaging it will take, quote, as long as it takes. Now, you do this to demoralize the other guy, but it means this is not a one-night stand like Venezuela or last time Trump bombed Iran. Now, impact on the economy falls into 3 baskets: growth, jobs, and inflation. Taking each, historically, every $10 rise in oil knocks about 0.2% off economic growth. That's small for an economy that's currently growing at 3%. It lowers wage growth by maybe $200 per year. But it goes on top of expensive oil to heat your home or gas your car. So a $10 jump translates into about 25 cents a gallon of gas. Together with heating and trucking, it raises household costs another $300 a year, bumping inflation by maybe a third of 8%. Oil and growth then both hit job creation. $10 might drop job creation by 10 to 15,000 per month. So it's painful, but it is not a recession. What would drive us into a recession is a long war. A recent study by Deutsche found that historic oil shocks need about a 50 to 100% ongoing jump in oil to set off a recession. That would imply oil prices of $100 to $150 that stay there. Currently, we're at around 75. But even then, oil only causes recession when you're already limping. So the 1970s are the poster child for an oil crash, but we were already in bad shape thanks to Washington dumping trillions into the welfare state in Vietnam, so-called guns and butter. In fact, the Nixon shock, when the system came apart, came before the oil embargo. In contrast, today we're growing at 3%. According to FedNow, productivity is soaring at 4.9%, which is one of the highest since the Reagan boom. So oil could knock us into the ones on growth, but even that will not set off a recession unless the Fed panics on oil prices and hikes rates, which could mow down millions of jobs. So as next brought to you by I Trust Capital. For now,
So I want to point out what he said about the overall impact to America. The oil prices have to double, right? So they have to go into sort of a catastrophic phase from here. Doubling would be a big deal. And then the other risk, of course, is that the Federal Reserve ends up hiking rates. But I don't think that's a real risk because you've got to look at the mechanics of the Federal Reserve right now. Trump gets control of the Federal Reserve by May. And I believe once he has control of the Federal Reserve, you're going to see a massive print and much, much lower rates. I think you're going to get through Kevin Warsh and Stefan Moran, who are there, the 1% rates that Trump has been talking about for a while, which are available to a lot of countries in the world. So I think they're going to print their way out of this recession no matter what. But let's look more at the actual flow of oil from the Strait of Hormuz because it's important and we do have a lot of insight on what's going on. The biggest story there is with the very guy who's taking control of the Federal Reserve, I don't mean Kevin Warsh. I mean Scott Bessent and the Treasury Secretary. Of course, I believe Warsh will be the underling to Scott Bessent, that Scott Bessent will be the top in this relationship, and he'll be the one who's really in charge of calling the policy shots and steering the macroeconomic vehicle that is the US economy, particularly this wartime footing economy. Now, he's already done something incredible, which I think will assuage a lot of fears and anxiety, and that is that he opened up the sanctioned Russian oil from India. So this was Trump's number one leverage point dealing with Ukraine, and this was what was forcing the Russians to the negotiating table. If you remember, you can't just shut pipelines off. There's a pipeline that brings Russian oil to India, and shutting off a pipeline is not really an option. The reason is the engineering of a oil pipeline means that it's not like just a water aqueduct where, oh, there's water now and then nothing and it sits there. The pipeline itself has to always have the supply in it. When you shut it down, the pipeline actually breaks. They can't survive being shut down. The engineering of how the pressure and how it moves. I'm not an engineer for pipelines. This is what I've been told and what I understand, that you don't have this option of on and off switch, that it's either off or it's on. And if it's off, it's not able to be turned back on because it's got major issues. And I'm sure it's not the whole pipeline just disintegrates into the ground, obviously. But I believe that the capacity for it to do its job is lessened, and its ability to even do what it's supposed to do is just eliminated if you shut it off for a certain amount of time. So that's my understanding. I know it doesn't necessarily make sense because you're like, okay, it's a pipeline, things flow in a pipe and no big deal. But something to do with the pressure, something to do with the way these are engineered, that they have to have supply in them all the time. So one of the things that Trump's been negotiating with the Russians is that he's been leaning on the Indians to shut the pipeline down in order to give Trump leverage in the Ukraine theater. Really just leverage to get Putin to the negotiating table. Now, with what Bessent did yesterday, which is get rid of that prohibition, the oil now flowing from Russia to India is no longer going to be considered sanctioned oil, and it will be available for anyone in the world, including China. Here we see the U.S. just let Russia's oil to India to keep the global economy alive. In a stunning reversal, the Treasury issued a 30-day license allowing Russian crude to flow to India, with the Strait of Hormuz remains choked off by Iran's blockade. Treasury Secretary Bessent framed it as a temporary measure covering oil already stranded at sea. The license expires April 4th, which quietly tells you how long Washington expects this war to last. Meanwhile, China is reportedly negotiating directly with Tehran to allow Chinese tankers and Qatari LNG vessels safe passage through the strait, and Saudi Arabia can potentially reroute up to 7 million barrels a day through its east-west pipeline, bypassing Hormuz entirely. The irony is thick. Trump slapped tariffs on India months ago to punish them for buying Russian oil. Now he's giving them a government license to do exactly that because his own war created the energy crisis, forcing his hand. I think it's not really forcing his hand. I think this just made sense as a strategy in order to get this problem out of the way. Steve Hanke says the unintended consequences of the Israel-U.S. war against Iran. Russia wins big time. Russia is redirecting crude oil to India. Nearly 9.5 million barrels of Russian crude is approaching Indian waters, which can more or less take up the gap. There are other strategies at play. I didn't know, but a lot of these countries keep deposits and stockpiles of oil in foreign countries. So here's what South Korea is going to get. South Korea will get 6 million barrels of additional oil imports from UAE. 2 South Korean oil tankers with 2 million barrel capacity will receive oil from alternative UAE ports that do not require passage of the Hormuz. So I guess Hormuz, you can see on the map that UAE stretches the entire little peak of the Hormuz. So because it comes on the other side, they can actually, and I guess they do have infrastructure that lets people take it without going into the straits. So that looks like it'll be safe. And here's the part I didn't know, that UAE has authorized South Korea to use 2 million barrels from joint reserves in Korea. So I guess UAE has redundancies of oil in foreign countries like Korea, which makes sense. So that seems like it's a good idea. As we heard about the Chinese, they're asking for a favor from Iran, asking them to let Qatari LNG ships pass through. Indeed, 45% of China's imports move through that route. So if it's blocked, Beijing's supply takes a big hit. So you can see why this is so important now. Um, Part of what's going on here and seeing how important this is to China and the supply of oil is to China, you can start to make predictions about where things are going in a much more accurate way. Again, the worry all the time here with the situation in Iran was that it drew China into the conflict to protect Iran because of these oil supplies and this oil relationship. Um, Again, I've been telling you for days that everything in Iran is related to China in some way. And people are starting to see it right now. So you can think of those economics not just in the short term Iranian war. You can think about them a little bit more long term. China looked at the lessons of the 20th century power conflict and drew the conclusion that military power alone doesn't determine outcomes. Upstream industrial capacity does. The Allies won because of overwhelming industrial might. Japan and lost because they lacked critical industrial inputs. Starved for oil, they were forced into gambles that cost them the war. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor to seize the oil in the Dutch East Indies. Germany marching to the Caucasus to take the Baku oil fields. Input scarcity doesn't just weaken you, it steers your decisions. It pulls decisions away from the optimal plan and toward the necessary plan. China learned this lesson and decided to be the one holding the choke points by embedding itself so deeply into the upstream supply chains that feed American military production. A conflict would trigger Western industrial paralysis and neuter its ability to fight a long war. But the chokehold only works if the West doesn't rectify its supply chain vulnerabilities before China is ready to move on Taiwan. So, China's central strategic requirement was to delay Western recognition of the threat for as long as possible. Thus, China's entire foreign policy posture becomes oriented around appearing non threatening. And it works because it aligns with the economic incentives of Western elites who benefit from cheap inputs and profitable trade. The cost of denial is kept artificially low. Raising the alarm looks like paranoia or protectionism when cheap goods keep flowing and no shots are being fired. The administration is now racing to unwind its supply chain vulnerability before the conflict window opens. But that takes years, and they face significant inertia, both domestically and among allies who remain naively blinded to the risk. China knows this, so their strategy is to keep the West sleepwalking, which means they can't show their hand. If China comes into direct military conflict with the US in order to defend a proxy, the West wakes up, the inertia collapses. The reshoring and remilitarization of China spent decades trying to prevent happens on an emergency timeline. But the US finally realized it could use this against them. Since China can't show its hand until it's ready to move on Taiwan, the US realized that it can turn China's greatest strategic asset, the pacifist disguise, into a structural trap that cannot take overtly aggressive action without triggering the Western industrial mobilization their entire strategy depends on preventing. So the US can eliminate their proxies, and China can't respond without destroying the disguise. Maduro removed, Cuba strangled, and now Iran. Beijing must decide if defending the proxy is worth waking the West up, and the answer keeps being no. Until China's window to move in Taiwan opens, the pacifist posture that enabled its chokeholds constrains their response to U.S. actions. Everything the U.S. is doing right now is a race to be ready before that moment arrives. Clear the proxies, arm the allies, break the chokeholds, and build new ones of its own. And indeed, it looks like that's what's happening. So if we're predicting based on these economic inputs, based on the relative strength, we still look like we're on the short-term war timeline. It still looks like things are going to be winding down. And indeed, we're going to see the Iranian regime caught up in all of this theater. We're going to keep seeing more theater, more cluster munitions and things like that. But again, it's all theatrics. It's all about the psychological war behind the war. And I think you're going to continue to see these kinds of steps, and you're going to continue to see these places like China act in a predictable way because of the economic constraints on them. And it looks like it's even having that effect. Here's Reuters, China, and China Uncensored, reiterating Chinese Air Force activity around Taiwan has fallen sharply in recent weeks, with no flights at all in the past week, a sudden drop in what had been daily military maneuvers that could signal Beijing is recalibrating its pressure on Taipei. It looks like people are indeed afraid of the situation in America with the weapons. And indeed, it's important because, go back to what we heard about just a few minutes ago about the story of China and the lessons they learned from history, and what they understood were the understanding what the lessons of the 20th century conflicts were in terms of supply chain management and logistical management. And you realize right away that one of the reasons why China did what it did, which was wage a institutional war in places like the UN and in academia and sending folks, is because indeed it was a hugely important aspect of hiding the long-term plans and integrating and wearing this disguise. Now, I remember yesterday in the chat, people were bringing up that Prof. Jang guy, right? Prof. Jang. So Roman helmet guy pointed out yesterday, and I'm glad people are starting to criticize this guy, because I saw him when he first started, and I thought, again, because of the lack of first of all, predicting the future without Bitcoin, what are you talking about? I'm incapable of doing it. I without Bitcoin would not be able to predict the future, because economics are how you predict the future, not some crystal ball. It's incentives, it's psychological space, it's understanding how people are going to behave economically that lets you understand and see around corners. Now, I might be wrong about Bitcoin. Sure, that's true. But so far, so good in my ability to predict what's happening in the world based on economics around Bitcoin and based on what all that stuff means. So this guy doesn't do that. He uses all these, if we look at the past and all that stuff. But Roman helmet guy here pointing out what I think is important about what's going on with this fella, saying, I still can't get over this. Please realize that if the West falls, they are not only going to take the future away from your kids, they are going to take away the past. They'll rewrite everything. They'll erase your ancestors with the stroke of a pen. The ones they don't erase, they'll make the bad guys in every story. The idea that so apparently this guy said the Punic Wars never happened. It was all a psyop. Now, history is fake, so I am with him on that, right? I'm with him on that. History is fake. And you're already seeing China create frameworks for fakening history along their own institutional subversive methods. Now, I have no idea what this guy's up to. I have no idea who really pays him, but it fits a mold that we've seen out there, and it fits a framework that a lot of people recognize. So indeed, it doesn't make sense here. Jang wants you to believe that Polybius completely fabricated a 2-decade-long devastating war that happened all over Italy itself within living memory, for which almost every Roman male was recruited and 33% of fighting age Roman men died. He wants you to believe that some 65-year-old Roman guy would go, I didn't realize my city was captured by this Hannibal Barca character and the population of Italy laid waste when I was 15. I must have missed it. Obviously, there's a ton of archaeological and literary evidence of a second Punic War and the existence of Hannibal Barca that is independent of Polybius. That should go without saying. But I want you to really stop and think about the kind of person who comes up with this theory, makes a video about it, and posts this video on YouTube. This is not a guy with a few facts wrong. This is not an innocent misunderstanding of history. If Western civilization falls, these are the people who are going to be teaching your kids. So again, I reiterate all this because you're in a psychological war. World War III is mostly psychological. Most of these institutions have been compromised. The best you can do is look at economics as they are to understand where things are headed. That's why I discount his ideas. I don't believe history is true, so I'm with him on that. What I'm talking about here is rewriting history based on what inputs, what worldview. Nobody knows. I mean, literally no one knows. That's why I was being hard on this guy yesterday, and that's why I continue to think that it's an important way of seeing it. How did Nick Fuentes predict Trump's second term so perfectly? without being a Bitcoiner. Good observation, though. That comes from Hassan. Well, I think he's playing a psychological game as well. So I don't know about predicting it. I'd say Nick did a good job. Remember, he was fully voting Democrat in the last election, and I think that's the case, right? He was upset about, remember, it was the in vitro or the fertilization stuff. So I don't look, I don't know exactly what's going on. I can't mind read Nick Fuentes. I found him charming on a number of occasions. His sit down interview with Tucker Carlson was pretty great. I really liked his eulogy of Charlie Kirk. I've listened to the show a few times here and there. But what I see now with a lot of that stuff about voting Democrat this midterms, demoralization campaigns, I don't think he predicted it in the way that other people did. I think he was operating in a scenario where it was possible and made a lot of predictions about it. But I don't know of any particular prediction that he made that was stunning, other than anything that served whatever op he's involved in. I classify Nick as what each of us would be were to be intelligent without distractions like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and an axe to grind. Yeah, it could be. So there you go. So what I think is more important, again, is to go back to these economic factors to understand and predict where things are headed. So this guy continues to predict America as toast, right? Zhang continues to predict America's toast from this Iranian war. What I see, again, go back to the Hormuz, it means that America now controls all of them in the world. Here we see from John Conrad, the first person to point out the story with the Lloyds of London's insurance a couple days ago, says the following: choke points are now more valuable than gold, the most valuable real estate on the planet. Under Biden, we lost the most important choke point in the world, the Suez Canal, to the Houthis. We lost Gibraltar when woke politicians in the UK and Spain refused to allow American ships to fuel there. We lost the Kerch Strait and the Bosporus to Russia. Trump is a real estate legend, and he came in swinging. Day one after the election, Argentina's president invited to Mar-a-Lago. This is not an active choke point today, but it is the most important backup choke point for the U.S. Navy if the Panama Canal fails. He offered asylum to South Africans to put diplomatic pressure on that government. He appointed Lou Sola to chair the FMC.gov and investigate choke point control. He dispatched diplomats when Norway refused to bunker Navy ships. He pressured the UK hard to secure the English Channel from migrant boats. He launched the largest carrier bombing offensive in naval history against the Houthis in Yemen and pirates in Somalia. He cut the steady flow of cash from US aid in Minnesota to Somali warlords. He demanded, and yes, failed, to end the Russia-Ukraine war to reopen the Bosporus to U.S. ships. He sent Hegseth and Rubio to secure the Navy's most important choke point, Panama. He dialed back rhetoric with China to keep goods flowing through the Taiwan Strait while improving security of the Luzon Strait. He got an icebreaker deal signed to secure the Bering Strait. He pushed back hard on the UN carbon tax that would have eliminated fueling options at choke points. He closed the GI-UK gap by playing hardball with Denmark over Greenland. He put the Indonesian president front and center at Davos, and just last week made a huge tariff deal to secure the Malacca Strait. Now he's laser focused on the most important energy choke point in the world, the Strait of Hormuz. In a world of geopolitical crisis, choke points are king, and Trump is the only leader on earth treating them like the strategic real estate they are. So I think this is the I think this is it as far as where this war is headed and where we're at in World War III. I think if you can control all these choke points, I don't know how you can lose. Now, again, we're all waiting, and I've told you many times that if we see a aircraft carrier sunk into the sea, things change really quick. And I do think we're going to see it at some point. So there's still storylines going here. But when it comes to secret and hidden weapons, I think America has just as many. And I think that people right now are afraid of American power. And that's more why you've got China being so dovish. They just realized that it's not worth the trouble. Maybe in 40 years, maybe when they take another recalibration on this, but controlling world energy markets this way is the most important thing. And so, just as you see the ballistic missile trajectory go down, right, you've got to imagine that the counter is possible with them controlling the energy and they can go up, right? What does the world energy markets look like with the US controlling the Straits of Hormuz? It continues to amaze me how Wall Street can't look 12 to 14 months out and model for a peace dividend and a global energy market turn on its head. Yes, a peace dividend is on its way. This is what I think. I think Trump is going to be giving all the world energy at market rates the way it was always intended. I think there's going to be no more sweetheart deals. And again, this is more about controlling these lanes and the economics that go with them in order to get peace through energy sharing and commercial relationships, which was always the American system. The American system is about commercial relationships with America around the world, and America operating under its own best interest, its own self interest, exactly what the founding fathers intended, not caught up in all these institutions and other places and all the rest of it. In this case, America's taking control of various choke points. Some of them they own, some of them they lease, some of them they just are so commercially bound with those places that they'll continue to be partners and cooperate. And that's why you can see with the reinsurance market that the City of London continues to double down in its actions against Trump. Ship reinsurers are now issuing 7-day cancellation notices on marine war risk coverage after U.S. torpedoed an Iranian ship. You can see that these folks here are playing for destabilization. Is getting hit by the U.S. Navy a legitimate concern, or is this political theater? You are involved in political theater. It's all theater at this point, and that's an important factor because it's theater versus a hard move to control real physical assets. So theater can only get you so far. If America can secure this properly, then they're going to be taking the insurance industry with it. Now, you see the fake news out there trying to turn this into a story, right? You heard everyone yesterday saying, oh my God, Saudi, and this was in the Wall Street Journal, Saudi and the UAE Emirates and Kuwait and Qatar are discussing withdrawing from U.S. contracts. All the money they've earmarked for the United States. They want to cancel future investment commitments to the U.S. to alleviate some of the economic strain imposed on them by the war. Now, sort of true in the sense that I assume they need to find money to pay for the physical damage, and it might come out of some of the money that was earmarked for American energy systems and other things. But will that really make a difference? I mean, we're still all going to be building this future together. I don't imagine that American and regional interests are going to be weaker after this. It looks like they'll be stronger. It looks like you're going to see American money and American ability continue to head to the area. You know, America, of course, has helped that area build from the very beginning. So I think this is it's not them punishing America. It's them saying, shit, like we need some of this money now. We sustained some damage, and so we've got to pay for it. Now, the flip side of this story, so there's a similar story to this, but it looks like it's actual financial punishment, also from the Wall Street Journal. But in this case, much more devastating, I think, to Iran. So remember, I told you that Dubai has always been a free port. It's always been a place that didn't involve itself in sanctions. It didn't involve itself in taxing markets. It's always, in its entire history, going way back. And I know this because I know a lot of Emiratis, and they've explained to me what Dubai always was, even when they were little children, and it really was just a small town, a small fishing town. It was always a place where people came from all over the world and traded. It was always a place that was much more cosmopolitan. It was a typical trading hub in many of the best ways. And so you can see from everything we know about Dubai being this trading hub that offered the opportunity for Iranians, for example, to come there and flee the sanctions that were happening in Iran from the American conflict over the past decades. And they invested a lot of money in Dubai over the years. A lot of those buildings have Iranians living in them. There are Iranians all over the place. I know my Emirati friends will point to different towers, Iranian money, Iranian money, Iranian money, Iranian money. It's been a well-known secret for a long time in the area. Many people embrace it, and there's a lot of Persians that are making their careers there. And so this move, contrary to the fake one about America losing investment from MBS, which I don't think is real, like I said, I think it's probably just a diverting of funds, probably all still earmarked for the same stuff, which is energy capacity, domestic and foreign, but it's all just energy capacity. Here, you're seeing that the UAE is ready to pivot on its free port status just to punish Iran for what it did. They're weighing a freeze on Iranian assets, which would sever an economic lifeline and choke off Tehran's access to global trade. And so they have an incredible amount of soft power here. And so that leads me to believe, and it's even happening in the crypto sector. Of course, here you see Binance fired a bunch of members on its compliance team because they had been working with Iranians. So here you see that the Iranian terror regime has been using crypto to get around sanctions and laundering money for terrorism. Binance internal auditors found more than 1 billion transactions tied to the regime, but the company reacted by firing the internal audit team. And indeed, I think that what's going to end up happening is Binance is going to be leaned on because they are absolutely a Dubai company. And as a Dubai company or an Abu Dhabi company, they're going to have to comply with their host country. So I think from all the economic factors we're looking at, it looks like the war is coming to an end. Because again, the head is cut off in Iran. So the whole thing is kind of ad hoc now and without a chain of command. So there'll always, well, not always, but for the next little while, be unknowns, I guess you could say. So that's an important thing to look at. And we've got someone on the ground here in the chat from Israel saying, good evening from Israel. Very few sirens now going to fiat mines on Sunday. I think the war is about to end. That's also my feeling. That's also what I think. So we'll see. I think it could take long. But again, we're dealing with a psychological war and we're dealing with an economic war. If you look at the economics, it says it's coming to an end. It says that the choke points, the Russian oil, China getting a sweetheart deal, which I think the Americans will have no problem with. I think all of that says that Iran is pretty isolated here and that this should be over soon. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm seeing. So it moves it right straight to the psychological component, the media component, and of course, Trump is doing Trump stuff, always operating at another level. So if it is all psychological from here on out, Trump, of course, generally good at this. So here's one of the clever things he's doing, giving different quotes to all the legacy media. Maxwell Mayer pointing out here, Trump's PR genius has been on full display this last week. He's calling about 5 to 10 reporters per day individually and giving them short but substantive exclusives on Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, guaranteeing that his exact words are the front page story in basically every outlet. So, 1 point for Trump in the psychological war. Dominating, getting attention for all these things is important. He did one better yesterday. He brought in the great soccer player Messi. He came and visited the White House yesterday. He drafted Messi into the war propaganda, which was pretty clever, and used the occasion to have Messi there. To also bring up Cuba, Trump tells Cuban Inter Milan Miami co-owner Jose Mas he'll soon be able to fly back to Cuba. I wanted to wait a couple of weeks, but I suspect we'll be together again soon, celebrating what's happening in Cuba. And indeed, looks like Trump telegraphing his plans, and I think importantly so. And, just again, it's a psychological war. So think about it, controlling the industrial choke points and the kind of boom that can cause, the kind of economic boom that could result from America making sure energy gets to every corner at the cheapest possible price, and that we get rid of all of these entanglements. Big change there, right? Just like we heard a potential peace dividend coming from all of this capacity being unlocked. Of course, don't forget Trump out there doing his thing with American energy and nuclear reactors. So one of the biggest stories just completely lost this week, that American companies are going to have to be in charge of energy production again, not the governments, not grid operators, not public-private partnerships, just straight up go build your own energy, back to the old 19th century format, when that was the norm in America in the 1880s and 90s, and the beginning of the 20th century, when the original car factories and the original mass production lines were created. Of course, I've mentioned the story many times. Ford used to make its own power stations. Huge manufacturers used to make their own power stations. So really important, right? And when you, again, think about the euphoria that Trump may be able to step into when you see these images of Messi and what's happening in Cuba, and getting rid of all of these, bad news, looming stories. More, A.G. Hamilton says here, over the last year, we've seen the joy of Venezuelans as Maduro was arrested, Syrians as Assad was deposed, and Iranians as Khamenei was taken out. These are people who have waited decades for justice. Lebanese people finally have hope of ridding themselves of Hezbollah. Cubans suddenly have hope. None of this is easy, and no outcomes are guaranteed. But hope is contagious. Evil can be beaten, and such wins should be celebrated. And I think that's what you're going to see. I think by the time Trump wonderfully gets control of the Federal Reserve, which is the timeline I've been saying, don't expect the bull market, don't expect the golden age to really take place until the actual plumbing of the financial system is swapped out. I said it was going to be done in time for America's 250th birthday. I think my timeline stays consistent. I made that prediction from the very beginning of this administration. I said NGOs and USAID first. All that stuff was going to be important to get to first. All of this foreign stuff would be important. Ukraine, all of the peace deals. That was always my vision for the first year of the Trump presidency. And we're on schedule. Now, what has to happen next is indeed the lowering of interest rates and the subordination of the Federal Reserve to the Treasury. And you're going to see all of these good news stories, all of this hope, and all of this optimism become indeed contagious. Philip Reichart says the same thing along this line, saying people are getting lost in the weeds on foreign policy. Step back and look at the full picture. This administration is, one, building control over our own hemisphere. Venezuela is ours. Cuba reportedly next. More to come, absolutely. Two, it's pressured Europe to contribute meaningfully for the first time in recent memory. Three, it has united the Middle East against Iran and is dismantling the regime systematically. Four, Russia is weaker for its foray into Ukraine, and Ukraine remains independent. Five, China, our primary adversary, by the way, is hurt by all of it, no matter what cope you see on the timeline. This is genuinely historic reassertion of American interests, and it's absolutely working, no matter how critical you are of the president. And again, this is the American system. This is what it is. It's just commercial flows for the rest of the world. You want to be communist in Venezuela with whatever her name is. You want to be Iranians. Trump, I think, is okay with some form of cleric being in charge for now. I think whatever interim situation is just to get the ability of Iran itself to catch up. I think they're going straight into a type of civil war after this, that their own conflict will be much more internal. Hopefully it's very quick and they get what they deserve, which is a decent governance system. I think they should just give the mullahs some town somewhere, and anyone who wants to be hardline, old-fashioned Iranian can go there and live there, and the rest of the people can get on with their lives. I'm sure there's cities that are available in Iran that can host and have all these folks. So it could be interesting. And indeed, I think seeing all of this stuff and the optimism that's about to be here is really important. Because indeed, I can see Trump just through energy politics, just through what he's been able to achieve already in UAE, with China, with Venezuela. He's about to do it with Europe too, by empowering Russia in the way that he's done recently with this deal in India. He's definitely giving the Russian regime an opportunity to recalibrate. And here we see that yesterday you can see Zelensky getting more and more cornered. Yesterday, according to Eva Vardingbrook, he actually threatened Orban. Eva Vardingbrook says here, we're at the point now where Zelensky is openly threatening Orban. This should be an immediate ground for the EU to suspend all support for Ukraine and never to even as much as consider EU membership again. Have they even condemned it yet? So he says, is that threatening Hungary? He's saying here, Zelensky ended up saying that he'll give him his address. You can tell them, this was the quote here. Video. We hope that one specific person in the EU, talking about Orban, will not block the 90 billion, or at least the first tranche of the 90 billions, that Ukrainian soldiers will have weapons, he says. Otherwise, we will give the address of that person to our armed forces. So pretty cold stuff here, not like a joke or anything, and let them call him and speak with him in their own language. And so not a good sign for him. And indeed, you can see Trump losing patience with Zelensky here. And patience with Zelensky, we see this from Politico. Trump unleashed presidents bullish on Iran, eyeing regime change in Cuba, and impatient with Ukraine. And this is what it says. Even as Iran remains a top focus, Trump said negotiations over the war in Ukraine continue, and he again expressed frustration with Ukrainian President Zelensky. Zelensky has to get on the ball, and he has to get a deal done, Trump said. On the other hand, Trump said he believes Russian President Putin is prepared to negotiate an end to the war. I think Putin is ready to make a deal, he said. Trump has said that before. When pressed on what Zelensky's obstacle is for a peace deal, Trump declined to elaborate, but maintained that Ukraine's leader is not showing enough willingness to negotiate. He says it's unthinkable that he's the obstacle, Trump said. You don't have the cards now. He's got even less cards. And so Zelensky getting admonished again. So look, it's a psychological war. And like we said, the ability to win, if these things work out, right, and you see Trump's persuasion, and you see the economic cards come to him, no amount of doomerism on the internet, no amount of psychological manipulation on the internet is going to be able to stop him. And now we see from here, indeed, Thomas Massie yesterday, speaking of psychological operations, someone pointed out, because all of their fundraising became public yesterday, Sean Farash here says, now we know why Thomas Massie is against Operation Epic Fury. His donors don't want their friends blown to bits. Is this what America First looks like? And if you look at all the $7,000 checks from Maruk, and the $7,000 is important because, of course, no problem if Muslim people donate money to Massie. But indeed, remember when they accused us of getting paid $7,000 per post for our pro-Israel positions? Turns out it was more projection. He's getting paid 7,000 US trash tokens per post for his anti-Israel position. Every single accusation is a confession. You can't make this up. We're in a world of psychological projection. We're in a psychological war. Now, Cernovich has a really good point here, because it wasn't just Massie that came under fire yesterday. Trump also attacked Tucker Carlson for much the same reason as he attacks Massie for not being MAGA and all this stuff. So here, I think this is the right way to look at it, right? Indeed, Cernovich says, Bill Ackman and Tucker have beef. I don't care. I quite like Ackman's essays and find him interesting on many subjects. If you lack the ability to compartmentalize, you belong in a halfway house. I am not your therapist. Indeed, there's good problems and bad things, right? Tucker is here for the 1 millionth time. I don't care who likes or doesn't like Tucker or anyone. I don't care who likes me even. I'm telling you, he is highly popular and relevant. If this is too much for you to handle, then this is a you problem. I would put Fuentes in that boat too, right? But you got to look at the incentives. Like, here's one that I love of Thomas Massie. So I don't have a problem with him taking money from people. Just understand why he is the way he is. Just understand that he's like that. Now, he does great things too. This is one of the things he's been working on, Prime. I'll always love Thomas Massey for doing this Prime thing, but you've got to be able to hold two thoughts in your head at one time. You've got to be able to say, okay, he's good here and I disagree with him there. It doesn't mean you have to hate these people. It doesn't mean they have to be wrong about everything and they have to be in on a conspiracy and all that stuff. They might just disagree. That's okay, right? This is the best thing that Thomas Massey's been working on. The Prime Act that Thomas Massey is behind is to allow all kinds of farmers to be able to sell across state lines without federal inspection. You've got Texas Slim here from the Bitcoin Beef Initiative talking about the problem that an Illinois rancher can sell state-inspected beef to his neighbors. He can't sell that 20 miles across the Mississippi into Missouri. Meanwhile, grocery stores sell beef from anywhere in the world. Lily Tang says deregulation is needed at federal level to make beef affordable again, more competition and cheaper prices. So I've always been a fan of Massey for doing that, right? And again, you can see that you don't have to hate these people if you disagree with them. And what I think is happening is, and we're going to talk about it again, but what you're seeing by these internal fights amongst conservatives or Republicans is actually a sign of where politics are headed in the future in America. I don't believe the Democrats survive the midterms, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I've said it from the very beginning, the schism started within the conservative Republican MAGA movement around the Israel-Iran thing last year. And I said from then on, I said, the fight you're seeing now is because it looks like MAGA people are confident enough, like Bitcoiners, to be able to argue amongst themselves. And that's a very good sign. That's anti-fragility right there. You want to have a healthy intra-party debate at this point. And I believe those debates are going to be what politics are when all this World War stuff is over and we're into a Bitcoin bimetallic system and we have the American system really moving along, that American politics are still going to have divisions, but they're the divisions you see now in the Republican Party. Maybe the Democrat brand can get rehabilitated. Maybe some of these folks will run and become Democrat later. That's totally possible. I'm not predicting the names of the parties necessarily have to change, but what you see of the Democrat Party today is not going to survive the changes that are coming to America this year. And the Republican Party, if it fractures, which it very well could, will fracture into what are the choices in American politics. Those will be the choices. The other choices won't exist. And so there's, a healthy amount of debate, but that's what's great about Nakamoto consensus, which is why the World War II consensus is falling apart, that you've got to be on message and discipline, and any little incursion of these facts will destroy the political party. One of the greatest things Trump ever brought to politics was this lack of party discipline, because he doesn't have party discipline himself. So how could he ever institute party discipline within the Republican and MAGA party? The thing thrives off of internal debate, just like Bitcoin. Bitcoin functions with Nakamoto consensus, with maximum amount of debating. It's what I always say when people say Bitcoiners are a cult. It's like, well, have you ever seen a cult argue with themselves this much? It's not normal. And the reason we can do it, the reason we have this huge capacity to have these massive debates inside of Bitcoin, is because of Nakamoto consensus, because it's not like fiat. We don't all have to agree. The consensus mechanism isn't what it is in the World War II fiat consensus model, which is, the fault tolerance is like, if 10% of people ask what happened to Kennedy, the whole system crashes. In the case of Bitcoin, you can have half the people asking questions, you can have half of the people disagreeing, and the network will still function just fine. And that is the kind of confidence you want to see going forward. It's what needs to happen. And it's why you're able, and you're going to have to be able to keep these two ideas in your head. Here's an example of, Trump criticized Tucker yesterday. It happened when Tucker made a video on Chabad. I don't know if any of you have ever had experience with Chabad. It's not so bad. It's not, Chabad is not bad. They're like missionaries. They're as close as you're going to find to a Mormon on the corner. They sit around. They'll be, if you're in New York City right now and you're in the afternoon and you walk down Wall Street, you walk down a bunch of streets, you'll see them. They'll have their arm all wrapped up. They'll want to wrap you in the ball on your head, the cube on your head, and all that stuff. They'll wrap their arm with the leather strap, and they give out menorahs around Hanukkah. I've actually sat down with the Chabad of UAE. They're kind of like community things, and here's Gad Sad, who spends a lot of time with Chabad, he says. And just noticing that Tucker's criticism of Chabad just doesn't make sense, that Chabad is not trying to usher in a end of the world scenario. They're not anti-Christian that I've ever seen. Indeed, here, his most recent thing about Chabad is astounding. When I was a doctoral student, I befriended Rabbi Eli Silberstein and his wife Hannah, PhDs. They would invite the entire Jewish community for Shabbat. It was such a welcoming environment. I've been to Chabad's for Shabbat many times. Like, I've got a lot of Chabad. I like Chabad people. Totally great, right? A few years ago, I delivered a lecture at the Montreal Chabad event. So Chabad works by one Chabad rabbi does it for his whole life, right? They go to a city and that's their life. They never leave. We have one here in Barbados. We have a Barbados Chabad. So any Jew in the world that wants to celebrate Shabbat is always welcome, no matter where they are in that city. If there is a Chabad, that'll be their little community, and they can go to whatever. There's a big, even at the airport when you land here, over Hanukkah, there was a huge digital sign that was welcoming people to experience the menorah lighting daily with the Chabad community. And so this Chabad thing is, if you live in Jewish areas, you'll know it. I grew up in Montreal and spent a lot of time in New York, and it was everywhere, just everywhere, right? When I went to Michael Saylor's New Year's party, he lives right in that part of the Miami Beach. I got a menorah. They're just handing them out on the streets, right? That's typical stuff. So they practice doesn't really look insulting to me. It's like a very unpopular, like the Mormons, they're not like, most people ignore them and tell them to fuck off. So it's not like it's not a joy, I don't think, to do, right? And indeed here, when Tucker spins founded, if not hallucinatory, conspiratorial theories about Jews and or Israel, there are very real nefarious consequences. Now he says, I hope Tucker finds his way back to reality. He is a great communicator who can be such a force for good. So I love Tucker. Even if he's going to say this stuff, I love Tucker Carlson, right? I watch his content. I think he has a very organized mind. I can disagree with him, however. That's not a problem. It's not about losing your team or whatever. David Deutsch, one of the smartest people in the world, is saying, indeed, no explanation focusing on one man, brain lesion suffices, because there are many parallel cases. It's not woke, but it's like woke, but not rooted in postmodernism. Evil, but since everything sufficiently emerges with the pattern, that can't explain it either. I don't know if it's evil. It could just be wrong, right? But again, the capacity we have for debate and to be wrong offers a lot of opportunities for us. Being able to coexist with people you disagree with. And I don't mean the coexist like all the religions, everyone's equal and all the same. That's not the kind of coexistence I'm talking about. The kind of coexistence I'm talking about is that you can say things, even if you're wrong. You can try arguments on for size. You can say things that are provocative. Trump has modeled this for us. Trump has modeled taking chances with public statements, saying things that you would never say, and then being able to indeed see if it fits. Because sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you have to say something out loud to find out if it's a good idea or if it's stupid. Sometimes you have to make a YouTube video and be 100% wrong to find out that you were wrong. And so people being afraid of saying the truth is what got us into the trouble with the fiat brainwashing in the first place. And Trump broke that mold. So you shouldn't be surprised if you have all of this extensive debating inside of the Republican Party. It's the healthiest thing inside the party. So people can go on about vibes being bad and Republicans not being unified and MAGA having trouble, but it's the same as Bitcoin. It's usually a good sign that the capacity to debate is this great. And so Trump criticizing him yesterday just puts a signal on what he's saying. It gives context to the divisions which exist. They're real divisions, but ignoring them is just going to make them fester. And so people taking chances in this way and having these debates out in the open is one of the best signs of what's going on. And it's what creates situations like this. This is probably the best news from yesterday. So if you didn't see, Ken Paxton is running against that fella in Texas. What's his name again? The senator. It's not Thune. Tillis. Is it Tillis? Who is the senator he's running against again? Thune. Yeah, no, Thune is the guy doing the thing. Who's the guy he's running against? What's the guy's name again that he's running? So this is the Texas senator race. All right. I think it's Cornyn. What am I talking about? Yeah, Cornyn. It's Cornyn. So Cornyn, right? So everyone's worried about Trump supporting Cornyn because it's going to help Trump get the SAVE Act through. And yesterday, Ken Paxton, who was the AG for Trump in Texas, the AG in Texas for Abbott, is trying to get the Senate seats, and he's in the primaries and is going for it now. And so yesterday he said he would drop out if it guaranteed that Cornyn would support the SAVE Act indeed. So Andrew Colvett says, still marveling at the chess move from Paxton. He's willing to consider bowing out of the race if it guarantees one of President Trump's signature pieces of legislation. This puts Thune in a vice grip. He either has to choose between actually fighting for a piece of legislation the grassroots and the president want, or admitting it's all a show. In one day, Ken Paxton did more to support the president and pass the Save America Act than most senators have done in their entire career, and he's still just a candidate. It's a good indication of how he'd perform in the Senate. So the important thing here is just to show you what happens if people aren't afraid to take these chances. It smokes out these inertia people. It smokes out the old version of the party, the message discipline version of the party, and shows you that this spontaneous version that's taking place is important. And here's the good news for Trump, right? A lot of people predicting that Trump's in big trouble, but they had to even announce this yesterday on both CNN and on Fox that Trump is more popular than ever. I'll take this over and play it. So there was some CNN with Harry Eaton or whatever his name is, showed this as well.
Epic fury has exceeded expectations so far, and 90% of MAGA supports it. Look at that.
So, it's probably just Fox News boomer slop, but I have a feeling that some of these divisions are for the people that are just addicted to this debate. Addicted to the narrative that there's a fracture amongst MAGA. I'll show you if the what I can get from the CNN one. I'm pretty sure I have the. Pretty sure I have the file here. 1 second. I just forgot to put the, or maybe not. Yeah, it was on Libs of TikTok here, exactly. So CNN forced to report that Trump is more popular among his own party at this point in his presidency than any president before him.
Republicans love Donald Trump more than any president's own party supporters loved him at this particular point. Just take a look here. Okay, own party supporters, 21st century presidents, own party approval about at this point in the second term. Bush was at 77%. Obama was at 77%. Look at this. 86% of Republicans approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing at this point. That is higher than either Obama or Bush had within their own party at this point. Trump's magic touch has not seemed to wear off yet when it comes to the Republican base.
And what kind of approval are we talking about here?
Okay, so we're talking about overall approval here. How about the strongly approved, not just like, but love. Okay, we're going to look at these same presidents again. Strong approval among your own party's base. What you see here is Trump is the only one who gets a majority at this point in their presidency. Obama was at 48%. Bush was at 47%. You see here Trump at 53%. Not as high as overall.
So, I mean, look, there's definitely bad vibes. So I don't want to make it sound like this is, I don't want to make it sound like this is probably boomer slop and probably stuff taken from, bad polling. But still, it shows you that some of the people online, myself included, get confused about divisions and actual numbers. Because in the end, again, the thing that's great about the actual ability of MAGA to debate these things and have these fights online and be able to have this conflict, again, it shows confidence, right? It's not this messaging discipline thing. And if you're so boring and then everyone has to have the same talking points, it allows for the Republican base to grow because there is the capacity to debate inside of the party. You don't have to debate with people that you'll never change their mind. Like that's really what goes on between Democrats and Republicans. But again, if SAVE Act passes, I think they win in a romp. I don't think that's why I believe they'll circle the drain, and that will be the very end of the Democrat Party. Now, a lot still has to happen for that vision to come true, but I continue to predict it's going to be a wipeout because this debating inside of the Republican Party, just like I said, it's got the Nakamoto consensus to it. It's got the anti-fragility to it. It's strong to be able to debate. It's confident to be able to debate and still be on the same team, still be more or less aligned. I think that's how Bitcoiners are when they disagree on things. I think, Muslim Bitcoiners and Jewish Bitcoiners and Christian Bitcoiners get along just fine, and they can disagree on a bunch of stuff. But ultimately, they have a part of their worldview that's shared, which allows them to disagree, but still coordinate and still work together. Now, that strength of being able to debate, that Nakamoto consensus debate, is an important distinction because it is, very masculine, of course, to be able to do this. And if you look at how politics are actually dividing, this is why I think you're going to see part of the wipeout of the Democrats in the autumn, is because they just don't have that masculinity to debate each other even. It's all just optics and more theater kids. I'm putting together a team. These are the guys, right? The Democrat Party is defined by their hyper-feminization. This is how that manifests in their male candidates and leaders. This is why they have totally lost any touch with working class men. And that's why, indeed, you can think about the vibes and think about the change. But, even that, yesterday there was a change at the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem out, MMA fighter in. And so, indeed, here, President Trump announced Kristi Noem will leave her role at DHS Secretary to become a special envoy for the Shield of the Americas. Her replacement is Senator Mullen, a former professional MMA fighter and an Oklahoma senator. Indeed, this guy will be taking over the deportations and all of the press conferences around them. A lot of people say upgrade. I think there's some ins and outs to it, but it's an important thing because it's this type of being able to debate and being strong and seeing the divide between men and women that's happening in American politics is an important way of predicting, because again, psychological, economic trends will help you get there. And with midterms, don't forget, Trump's goal is not, he doesn't need to convince Democrats, right? That's not important in a midterm. Midterms, generally speaking, are lost by the governing party because voter turnout decreases, because the issues aren't important enough because they're already winning. And it's generally that trend. It's just voter turnout. So the key to winning midterms in America for both Democrats and Republicans is to get your base out. When your base is out of power, there's motivation to get in. Therefore, the motivation clicks in automatically. Now, Republicans have their own incentives. So people mistake fighting amongst MAGA and Republicans as a reason for which they won't vote. Now, when I look at all this man strength, this kind of stuff, you can start to see that indeed, here, lesser evil arguments works on you and me. We are high propensity voters. It does not drive turnout more broadly. So, indeed, here you see lesser evil arguments, right? But that's not what we're doing here. Trump is going to be able to do the fix the world argument. He's going to be able to do golden age argument. And Clint Brown says 100% this midterms are about voter turnout, which is about motivation. Vote for me because I'm not as crazy as them doesn't really inspire. It demoralizes, which demotivates and decreases turnout. But I don't think Trump is going to be running on that. I don't think that at all. I think Trump, don't forget, Trump is holding all of the timeline in his hands. The P.T. Barnum, and isn't it funny that P.T. Barnum is starting to trend because Trump called Zelensky P.T. Barnum, but I call Trump P.T. Barnum all the time. So you can see from Trump and his P.T. Barnumness, right, that voter turnout mostly in his hands because of his theater management. We're in Trump theater. We're in downtown, middle of Trump theater. And that's why just today, probably by the time I'm off, you're going to get more Epstein files, 50,000 additional documents coming today, drip, drip, drip. Again, you have to understand the type of cards Trump is holding. He knows exactly what's in the Epstein files. He knows exactly what's in declassification. He's going to use the golden age rhetoric of money, 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 print, 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 energy, 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 plus declassification and secrets to get around any lack of motivation on the part of Republicans. Trump is going to have Republicans so motivated to vote that they're going to be lined up for days beforehand and hear Cernovich saying the following: I don't care what polls supposedly say. The Epstein files come up in real life so often that I have burnout. Anyone saying this isn't important is lying or incredibly stupid. It's one of the top subjects that come up, even people who aren't hardcore political. And that's what I'm seeing. Everyone talks about the Epstein files. Everybody. And it's one of the few cases where you can actually have one of these conversations across political lines and sort of agree. Now, Democrats always flip to, oh, I think there's something in there for Trump. I think that's true. But I don't believe that. I think Trump has the ability now to control this timeline. I think you're going to get the 9/11 tranche that was kept out. That will be declassified. Trump is going to be continuing to manage the declassification of all of these state secrets, and you're going to get a steady dose of it. People are already picking up on the declassification here. You've got the upstart in the UK, Rupert Lowe, talking exactly about that. This is how you create the appetite. This is where you get motivation from. Secrets and revelatory stuff definitely motivate people. And when you give them the dopamine and then you create a story where you know anger is going to be intense. Now, I don't know exactly what's in the 9/11 files, and I don't know what's left in the Epstein files, but it's a complicated story, and I do think there's a lot of interesting stuff left that will definitely motivate people, especially if they get what they want, which is a happy ending to the story. And by happy ending, I mean punishment and all these things. So here you see Rupert Lowe, Restore Britain will declassify, and then declassify some more. We will tell you exactly how your taxes have been spent accommodating these third world criminals. Trump has the audits from now until then. All of these stories are already, you see the interest in them. This isn't just conservative stuff. Trump is going to be able to dominate conversation, just like he's dominating conversation with the Iran war. He's going to be able to dominate conversation for months after he takes control of the Federal Reserve, and he'll have unbelievable bully pulpit from now until the midterms. We will tell you exactly which politicians signed off on what. We will tell you exactly what crimes third world sex pests and rapists have been inflicting on the British people. Could transcripts released, court transcripts released for free? We will tell you exactly which nationalities are driving the rape epidemic, exactly which countries supply us with these savages, exactly which citizens have been a drain on our society. We will be honest with the British people. You will, if you want transparency, then vote for it. Vote for Restore Britain. And you're going to see a lot of these stories because, indeed, the UK with censorship is already worse than the Soviet Union. So you have an incredible story here. You have an incredible amount of yearning to be free amongst populations that were only ever knew freedom. And so that's a lot of motivation. And here you can see annualized UK speech prosecutions are running about 17x those of the Soviet Union under Brezhnev. Of course, the USSR had 4x the population, so more like 68% of the prosecutions per person per year. So a bad sign in the sense that they've allowed themselves to be taken over. But look at the lessons you learn. I mean, here's Kazakhstan yesterday, a country that grew up and was part of the Soviet Union. And what are they doing? They're out there announcing they're going to buy 350 million Bitcoin and crypto this April. Nation states allocating to BTC. It's here. What this really says is that those countries that have already learned these lessons about censorship, about trusting governments, are already at this level, and you've got a complete recalibration of what a state looks like, a nation state, the relationship between the state and the people. You can see Bitcoin entering the conversation in a way like this that I think does bode well for our ability to predict where things are headed, and the lessons learned and the maturity learned. This is only possible because they were communist once, I believe. Now, places like El Salvador, it's the same. They weren't communist, but they were completely destroyed and captured by forces that were not anything like civilian. And so there's a reason why these countries were first to Bitcoin, like America. America was captured, don't forget. The Donald Trump phenomena that happened in 2024 was because there was a stolen election and you had an actual coup. And so people woke up, and the only people that were able to articulate the coup were people who understood, don't trust, verify. We had an incredible mimetic psychological upgrade that came about as a result of all of this change. And so when you compare what's about to happen, you can see in Western European states, and you compare to what already happened in these communist countries, you get why they're like that. And indeed, here we see Sean Davis saying the vibes right now are very 2020. Not great. Plenty of time to change, because 8 months is an eternity in politics. But to change the vibes, you have to acknowledge when they suck. And right now, they do suck. They suck in Bitcoin. I admit that. The vibes in Bitcoin are terrible too. But like other people say, the stage is being set for what has come. Megyn Kelly says totally. We need a true, not a spun win for the American people, indeed. But that's why the golden age that Trump is going to be selling from the summer on is so important, because coupled with all of these other stories, indeed, you're going to see the economic story become the number one story. It's all people really care about in the end. And, Rupert Lowe going on about declassification, that's great theater. That's definitely interesting. That's going to motivate people. But here you can see another tweet from him. This is, again, the upstart in the UK. Inflation, he's not just talking about declassification. He's getting into the most important story, which is the government money system, the fiat money system's debasement, and exactly what's been going on these past years. He says here, inflation is the tax that makes all of us poor. It makes your food shop more expensive, clothes more expensive, fuel more expensive, everything. It impoverishes the British people. This is not random. This is not accidental. This is not irreversible. It's the direct result of government choices. When the state grows too large, spends too much, borrows too much, and taxes too much, the value of money is steadily eroded. This is not complicated. Prices rise and savings are punished. Wages fall behind and the country becomes poor. Ordinary British men and women feel worse off, even if they are working harder than ever. With those on the lowest wages suffering the most, the economy is failing those who work hard and contribute, yet feel less and less reward. I detest it. For decades, Politicians have tried to pretend that they are complicated solutions to this problem. There aren't. There are straightforward solutions. That doesn't mean they're painless, but they are straightforward. So far, no political party has had the courage to outline the way forward. We will. Restore Britain will. If you want to bring inflation down and keep it down, you must radically shrink the size of the state. This is non-negotiable. Government spending drives inflation. Endless borrowing drives inflation. Constant intervention in the economy drives inflation. And when the state grows larger and larger, it must fund itself through either taxation, borrowing, or money creation. All three ultimately push prices higher. It makes your money worth less. It makes your food shop more expensive. It's really quite simple. If the state prints billions and billions, quantitative easing, that what happens to the existing money? It all becomes worth less. This is so painfully obvious. And yet, what does the state do? Cheered on by gopher politicians, print and print and print some more. Restore Britain would do 5 following things brutally and rapidly: drastically cut government spending, radically reduce tax, brutalize the size of the state, ensure the country lives within its means, ban money printing without explicit parliamentary approval. If this is painless, is this a painless process? No, it's not. I am not going to tell you otherwise. It will be painful. It will be difficult. There will be immense cuts. I am simply being honest with you all, but it is necessary. It's the only way. Indeed, it's why you can see that Restore Britain is likely going to end up being a Bitcoin policy vehicle. I think this guy is a few days away from starting to do long Bitcoin posts. So you're going to get it, right? And that's really what it all comes down to. Again, how to motivate people. You've even got Cernovich saying it straight out here, right? Saying, I insulate my kids from politics. They obviously overhear me, but I tell them to enjoy being kids. Today, my 8-year-old says, Dad, money is just paper, right? I said, yeah. Then why is it worth anything? And he says, I swear I don't talk about the Fed to a kid even. This stuff is obvious indeed. And it's why we're going to see all of this stuff become so important and so different. Why you're going to see a complete and total awakening through financial success, through financial literacy, through energy literacy. It's why we are really upping the American worldview. The American mind has all of these Bitcoin memes that they're about to use to enhance their worldview. 21 million, don't trust, verify, proof of work. All of these things are going to become more and more important. Proof of work, you're already seeing the incredible capacity that AI is having, right? Here's another note about all the energy in New York right now. Oh, wow, I went to the sold-out Open Claw meetup in New York City last night. Let me tell you what I learned. One, not a single person thinks that their setup is 100% secure. One Open Claw expert said he has reviewed setups from cybersecurity experts and laughed. His statement to me was, if you're not okay with all your data being leaked onto the internet, you shouldn't use it. It's a black and white decision. Pretty much everyone is setting up multiple agents, all with their own names and jobs and personalities. Nearly everyone used him or her to refer to their own claws, even if they had robot-leaning names. One speaker suggested to think of them as pets, not cattle. One guy, former finance, built out a whole stock trading platform and made 300 US trash tokens his first day. He bought in a ton of personal expertise, skipping the first 15 minutes of the market. Here, Sty Pete is basically a god to everyone in that room. Also, the room had 2021 crypto energy. I don't know if that's good or bad. Well, I think it's good in the sense that that's where people are going to create these proof of work frameworks. That's where people are going to actually do jobs, to realize their dreams, to get their idea out on paper, to be entrepreneurial. That is the key to winning this. It's spreading that optimism. Corporations are not going to get us there. Jobs with corporations are not going to get us there. What's going to get us there is a bunch of entrepreneurs finding ways to make money, finding ways to get involved and be profitable. Again, it's going to be in storylines. We have, again, more and more of these movie systems becoming capable of completely taking over that whole industry. Individuals, not corporations. Brian Romelli spent 10 hours testing this, and I can say it is stunning. The shifts the entire field of video. How many times have we heard that in the past year? They keep getting better and better. I think you are indeed going to see something pretty incredible with all of this soon. We've got so many golden age opportunities coming. Here's another one. Looks like cancer, another form of cancer. All these young people getting cancer. New York Post, I was diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer at 26, and new therapy wiped it out in 4 months. Stage 3 rectal cancer in a 26-year-old. This is what I've been warning about. The incidence of colorectal cancer in young adults has nearly doubled since the early 90s. We're seeing stage 3 and 4 in people under 40 with increasing aggressiveness. But the real story here is the treatment. This is, I can't relate it, dostarlimab, a PD-1 checkpoint inhibitor. Immunotherapy alone, no surgery, no chemo, no radiation, 100% clinical complete response rate in mismatch repair deficient rectal cancers. The immune system did what it was designed to do. We've known since PD-1 inhibitors were approved in 2014 that this was the direction cancer treatment needed to go. The paradigm is shifting, empower the immune system instead of destroying it. So we have all of these incredible golden age capacities that are really close to coming online. And it gets better, right? We've got Alzheimer's cure in Japan, groundbreaking stem cell treatments for Parkinson's and severe heart failure. So these are the narratives that are about to get caught up in a world that might just not have military threats coming up soon, that might not have the types of divisions that we used to have, that might not have this London City divide and conquer flywheel running people and propaganda anymore. We might have energy abundance flowing around the world being sourced from nuclear reactors. We've got the capacity of multiple countries to orange pill in the next little while. We've got medical treatments. We've got AI. We've got all these incredible things that are coming. And even with AI, this is, again, Anthropic, because it lost that government contract, right? They're no longer sure if Claude is conscious, right? I think this is totally true from Andrew Zwywick here, saying the following: do people not understand the PSYOP? AI will never become conscious and start making its own decisions. It will be programmed to do exactly what it does, and those who program it will convince you it's alive and controlling itself, and then they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, and with a perfect scapegoat. The greatest atrocities ever seen can be conducted with no accountability. It's like having an infinite get out of jail free card. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to tame the AI and very easily find ways to use it to our benefit. And I do believe it is the start of the golden age indeed. Noble Noesis, it's my first time catching a stream and I learned a ton from you in only 20 minutes. Well, glad. Awesome tweet. Glad you made it. I find it weird how little coverage of the Iran war there is on X. Yeah, mostly, I think, because there's probably filters put on, I'm guessing, because fake stuff. Oh, there's Hank in the house. I didn't know Hank was coming today. Indeed. Let me just get to a couple of these. Freedom of religion. There we go. Entrant, watching the tent go and sitting up, just enjoying the show under the big top. Indeed. Fix the world, be my guest. I got to see this. Lord, you watching? Indeed. All right. Recognizing the boomer slop and not being a nihilist or doom sharing is a hard needle to thread. That's why we love this show so much, dude. Thanks a lot. All right. Let me bring Hank on here. See what is going on with Hank. How you doing, man? How you doing?
I'm great. It's Friday. I'm excited for the weekend, and I remain cautiously optimistic about the week. Not full blown, but you're rubbing off on me.
What's the plan for the weekend, my man?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. I got work to do, man. It's going to be a pretty boring adult weekend for me. But, I'll find some time to get outdoors. We live in the Bay. It's very nice here. What about you? Anything good?
Let me see. Well, I will probably just go to the beach and go for a long walk. I don't really have any direct plans. I don't think my kids' good friends were actually staying at my place in Montreal for the past couple weeks. They wanted to see snow because they live down here. So they went to my place, and they're back. So I'm sure I'll be visiting with them because my kids are going to want to play with their best friends from here. So the homeschool gang, the homeschool gang. So
well, it sounds like an eventful weekend, and God knows what'll happen this weekend. Last weekend was crazy in the world news arena. So we'll see how this goes.
It's gonna be great, Hank. We're excited. Yeah, today on the story we covered just the ins and outs and ups and downs of what's going on in Iran. We took a look at some of the economic factors that you got to factor in here, right? How much oil can get through. We saw Trump open up the Russian oil to India. That's now non-sanctioned, so India can sell it again. And then saw the China make a deal with Qatar and Iran to be able to get its oil out. And then the UAE has a bunch of oil stockpiled around the world, and they've also got a port that's not in the Strait of Hormuz. And there's another port that Saudi Arabia has on the other side of Saudi Arabia. So it looks like the oil is going to flow. It looks like the replacement is there. And so that's probably the most important factor to determine how this is going to go and how long it's going to last.
Yeah, you know, I read something on it recently, and it's too bad I don't have you on our show today because I would love to get your take about it. And they were saying that between Venezuela and what's going on in Iran, all of this is meant to stick it to China. And like their energy sources, like that's been the whole plan this whole time. And Trump's doing a master class at that. So I'd be curious. That seems to be what you're reading as well from this.
Yeah, we actually, there was a guy who shared a map of all the choke points in the world. And it looks like go back from Panama, getting the Chinese out of there. Argentina, if you can't get Panama, that's why Milei was his first visitor, was because if Panama wasn't openable, then you got to realize Argentina's ports become the most important way through. So that was his first port that he took control of. And, you know, the whole Greenland thing was a part of that. And he got the deals done with the Strait of Malacca so that the Singaporeans can't do it. So that looks like what it is. And now they're all under American control, every single one of them. So anyone, and the promise to keep, you know, selling it at market rates is what everyone wants to hear. Some people are getting it at the sanctioned rate, right? It's because it was black market oil. So you get it for cheaper.
Right.
That's all that's changing. Is the sanctioned black market cheap oil is gone. It's just market prices.
No more ghost fleets for you guys. They're out. But speaking of which, I better hop out of here. I'm going to let you finish up with your show, Nolan. Have a nice weekend, buddy, and I'll see you on Tuesday.
Awesome, man. Can't wait.
All right. See ya.
Take it easy, Hank.
See ya. Bye, Nolan.
Bye-bye. All right, team. You heard Hank. We got to get going. Johnny Midas, thank you, Nolan. Love your channel. I appreciate it. Lucky says, I feel like I'm on a Bitcoin Chabad and I went to teach everyone Bitcoin and I want to teach everyone Bitcoin. We love that. We love to hear it, Lucky. Good morning, John Atoro. I hope you're doing well, my man, indeed. Let's see what folks are saying here. Sounds like Hank is succumbing to the fake news. No, he's happy. He's a happy guy. The sun is up and Bitcoin is indeed running. Indeed. Play guitar on stage and make mistakes. Nothing like it. Friday, indeed. There you go. Higher highs, lower lows, 68,000 US trash tokens. That's where we're at apparently right now. Great show as usual, says Escape the Matrix. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, everyone. All right, we're going to get going now. I'm going to play the ad, or I'm going to play the logo, and then we're going to see the thanks for watching screen. I just want to say to you, thanks for watching. I think I'm doing the Canada show today. We'll see. I got to check with my co-hosts. God bless you, brother. God bless you, John. Hope you're doing well, my man. So let me check with my Canada co-hosts. If they're around, we're going to do it. Canada kind of not that much in the news this week. There's so much going on. And so we'll find out if we got a show. So if that happens, I'll see you in 2 hours. And we'll be right here. If not, then I'll see you Monday morning. Peace out.